Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Land Development Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Glick. If this is your first time joining us, each week when you tune in, you'll hear one of two different types of shows. Sometimes when you tune in, you're going to hear industry news. That's where we pull up a few different headlines and we talk about what it means for the industry. Other times when you tune in, we have an interview style show where we have on someone associated with the industry. We hear about their origin story, and then we dig into some of the things they're doing within land development. Now, today, I have someone on the show who I've heard his name multiple times with other guests who've been on here. And so I knew I needed to reach out and get him on here to have a conversation. We have Tim Early on the show, and Tim is the associate professor and coordinator of the Master of Land and Property Development program at Texas A&M. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan.
So no different than the other episodes, I want to start out similar with you in that I'd really like to dig into some of your background, because doing a little digging before we hopped on here today, it looks like you started at A&M back in 2019. And so before that, you have quite a bit of, real world land development experience and, working with several different companies. And so, before we jump in and start digging into Texas A&M and what you do there, could you walk us through kind of your background in the industry and how you got into land development to begin with?
Well, I think like most folks, there's no one unique path to get into real estate development. So I was studying it at Texas A&M back in the 80s and graduated in 1986, which was probably one of the worst times you could have ever wanted to go into real estate in any role. So my first job was actually with Bluebell Ice Cream, and worked there for about 6 months or so, and decided I really wanted to be in real estate. So I found a job doing ad valorem tax consulting in San Antonio, and worked there for about 18 months. And then, the economy was still starting to recover, and I really wanted to get into development more so than ad valorem tax consulting. So I was up at A&M visiting some friends, found out about the land development program. At the time, it was called Master of Science in Land Development. In 2000, they changed the name to Master of Land and Property Development to really showcase that it's not about just land development, but we also teach our students about commercial development and vertical development as well. So I started the program and got out in 91 and did some consulting work for a year. Then wound up in Austin working for a group for about 4 years. In 97, I moved to Houston, worked for U.S. Home, got into the residential land development track. And over the last 30 plus years, I've done land acquisition and land development. So two kind of unique areas, especially for a lot of the larger builder developers and their team. They'll usually have a land acquisition team and a land development team. I've done that for both public and private companies over my career. So, I have a lot of different experiences. And that's what translates into our program for our students, is that the majority of our faculty come from industry. So we're teaching our students practical skills that they can apply when they get out in the workforce. And so that's a little bit about my background. I've done infill development, age-restricted development, master plan communities, pretty much you name it on the residential side. I've done it over the last 30-something years.
Well, that's interesting to hear, because I feel like a lot of times higher education gets a bad rap when it comes to certain fields of study, because it tends to be a lot of theory, very theoretical in how it goes. And sometimes you'll have instructors who have never really done the thing that they're teaching. And so it's really interesting to hear just about the faculty and the program in general, that you have people coming in and teaching it who have already done that thing. And so it feels more practical from that standpoint. Is that something that, I guess from your standpoint, you went out and did it, and then you decided to come back to A&M at some point? And, what was it that really brought you back into A&M and wanting to get into the education side?
Well, throughout my career, I've been a friend of the program and wanted to give back to the program. When I got into land development, you're either an engineer or a finance person, and primarily engineers that developer would say, okay, I'm going to go steal an engineer from this shop and I'm going to teach them the finance and the other side of the business. And so my My I owed a debt to the university and our program for allowing me to get into it. So, and when I started in real estate, this was back in the early '90s, and it was still pretty much a sink or swim type of experience for folks, and that's what really kind of led me to want to teach. So, throughout the years, I've been an adjunct faculty member, a guest speaker within the program, involved with the program, helping students find jobs and that type of thing. And about 6 years ago, I just happened to have a random conversation with at that time, the coordinator of the program, who I've known for 30 plus years. And we were talking, and I asked him, what would I need to do to pad my resume if I wanted to teach one day? And he said, well, it's a funny thing you should ask that, because I just told the department head that I'm retiring in 18 months. So they invited me to come teach one class in the fall, one class in the spring, and they got to check me out. I got to check out A&M and what it was like to really teach. And about 5 years ago, I was able to join the faculty full time and really bring the experience and the practical side of the business to the program.
Gotcha. Well, that's pretty cool how the timing and everything of that all worked out. So what you've already talked about it a little bit with the program and everything that's involved there. So could you, I guess, walk through when a student comes in and they're going into the program, what should they expect coming into it?
We focus on all aspects of real estate. So from idea inception through disposition of an asset. So, we take students from a variety of different backgrounds. We actually have two programs within the Master of Land and Property Development, or MLPD program. We have our online program, which is really tailored to working professionals. You have to have minimum 3 years experience to be admitted into that program. The other program is our in-person program. So that's really designed for students coming straight from an undergrad program into our program. So what we try to do is assume that students may not have a whole lot of experience in real estate. So we're starting with the basic skills and building them up from scratch. And again, we're covering everything from idea inception through the disposition of an asset.
Okay, well, I was going to ask you that question. You just answered it. Was around. I was curious of who goes through the program. So it sounds like you get a number of people going through this program who are go right from undergrad into it, but then you also have working professionals who have been out in their careers and then they're coming back in to get additional education very specific to what they're doing. Is that accurate? How it works?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. What I guess what do you see most of? Do you see a lot of people come back and go through the program?
Well, we've grown our online program. We started it 4 years ago, and we went from zero. We have currently 45 students in our online program, and it's continuing to grow. And I'd say that probably half of the people in the program are looking at second career, either former military or retired, or changing careers for some reason. The other half are actually engaged in something related to real estate or within real estate, but they'd like to learn, more skills. They might want to pivot from brokerage to development. So this is a way that they can kind of jumpstart, that learning curve.
Gotcha. And being an online program, is that something that they need to be located somewhat nearby, or do you have people joining the program from really anywhere?
We recently admitted two students from Pennsylvania. We have one student that graduated from Tennessee, Florida. So we're starting to increase our influence and recruit from out of state as well.
Okay, well, that's really cool because we have people listening in from all over the U.S. So for those listening in, I just wanted to make sure that they knew if this was a possible option for them if they happen to be thinking about something like this as a path in their career.
As a plug for our out of state listeners, at A&M, if you get $1,000 scholarship, you can get in-state tuition, and we really try to earmark some money for out-of-state students. So, when you look at the cost of our program, we're a value compared to a lot of other programs nationally. But when you get that in-state tuition or out-of-state tuition waived, we're extremely competitive on a cost per per hour, credit hour.
What do you like thinking about the program itself versus some of the other programs out there that you know of around the country and everything? What do you think makes A&M's program unique?
Well, two things really. First is our location. You'd think, well, College Station, that's not a hub of real estate development activity, but being in the middle of the Texas Triangle, if you will, Houston, Austin, Dallas, San Antonio. There's a lot of demand for folks coming out of our program with those skills. So one, our location, and the second thing is, again, just the practical nature of our program really differentiates us from a lot of other programs. I joke with students when they're applying that you will never hear me say, "Get out your textbook and open to chapter 5." It's real world information we're teaching students. So our students learn how to read construction plans, for example. So I'll get with a developer, actually Alex Camcar, we're using his Atwater project. So he got with his engineer, they sent us a set of construction plans, and we're using those to teach our students how to read construction plans. If we're talking about a contract to sell lots, I'll get with an attorney friend and have them send me a contract that they're using today. So, it's definitely a real world. I run it as if, most recently I was at Pulte Homes running a land team. And, I think about what skills would I want someone coming into that shop to learn. And that's how we design the curriculum over the last, 10, 15 years.
Okay. Well, kind of piggybacking off of that just a little bit, I'm curious from your standpoint, what do you think for individuals who are thinking about going into the land development space or just in real estate in general? Is there a certain skill or a certain like trait that you think makes somebody better at, better in this industry versus maybe not the right industry for them? Is there something you think people need to have?
I always go back and forth on that one because it's great to say, well, this is what you need, but probably the two things are, one, that you need to love to learn, because just when you think you have it figured out, the city is going to change something, the county is going to change something. So the ability and desire to learn. And then two, persistence is that, the city tells you no, you have to go back, you have to, regroup, figure out, okay, how can we adapt, improvise, and overcome, and get the deal across the finish line.
Yeah, and speaking of change, all the change that's happened. So you being in the industry for a number of years now, what do you see down in Texas? What's been the biggest thing that you've noticed or changes that you've seen when it comes to land development from when you started versus where things are at today?
The thing that's overarching between all four of the major metro areas, I would say, is the amount of public involvement in the development process. A long time ago when I first started, when I was working in Austin, I did a lot of entitlement work, and from time to time they'd ask, well, if you're doing a zoning application, have you visited with the neighborhood association or homeowner association next door? And they wouldn't require it, but they would suggest that you meet with them. And now it's almost mandatory. So cities and counties are really focusing on making sure that other folks, adjacent or near your property, are involved in the process.
Okay. And I'm kind of curious, like thinking about, again, students coming into the program, and probably more so the professionals who are coming back and looking to maybe change careers, or they want to shift from, like you said, being a broker to maybe getting into more of the land development side of it. Is that, getting into the program, is it something where it's a normal application process and then you basically go through whether you're approved to get in or not? How long does that time frame usually last from somebody applying? And does it follow the normal academic calendar of basically you have like a fall semester and a spring semester of classes and everything?
Right. So we have fall and spring classes. We don't have summer school. So we have a internship requirement for our in-person students. Our online students, we waive that, but we figure that they're probably doing something work-wise to where we don't want them to quit their 8 to 5 job just so they can do an internship to go back out and get another 8 to 5 job. But we have fall and spring admission. The application process is relatively easy. We do not require any standardized tests. So you'll need a 1 or 2 page statement of purpose, which is really just a summary of why you're interested in the program, what you'd like to get out of it, what your long-term goals are. So statement of purpose, 3 letters of recommendation, and then transcripts from your undergrad institution. And generally, I try to turn those applications around within 30 days. So I'm constantly looking at the system that we use for our admissions. And as applications come in, I try to clear them out as quickly as I can, just to let folks know either you're in or you're out.
Okay, so this episode will be coming out in January, and so probably about the time when I would guess the spring semester starts. Somebody who's listening to this and is thinking about the program, they probably would need to be then kind of preparing for working on admission to the fall if they were going to want to start. And then how long does the program last? So when you get into it, is it a multi-year program, or what is the usual time frame?
For our in-person students, it's a 15-month program, and we have them in a cohort group. So, it's amazing the relationships that are built within that cohort. So, you're taking the same classes with the same people over 3 semesters, 36 credit hours. For our online students, they're generally completing the program in about 2 years, maybe a little over 2 years. So most are taking about a half load. So we do it in credit hours. So it's 36 credit hours for the program. That's 12 classes. So most students are taking either 2 or 3 classes each semester, and we're flexible with students. I had one student that was running a custom home building company, and she approached me and said, "Hey, look, I'm just swamped." And I was like, "Well, don't take any classes this semester, and we'll get you caught up." And she took the semester off, worked through some of the deals that she was working on, and then the next semester took 6 and then 9 hours. And I think it took her a little over 2 years to finish the program. But what I try to do is within the program is bring the same attitude you need in real estate, that I'm not here to tell you why you can't do something. Let's figure out a way to make it work for you. So, generally 15 months to 2 years, maybe a little over 2 years for students to complete the program.
Okay, well, I like that. That's good to see, because that's real life. Things come up. You're going to have things, and if you're running a business and you're doing this in addition to the business that you're running, just to get some more knowledge and understanding to maybe branch out what you do into some other areas and into development. I can see that. There's going to be busy seasons and other seasons where maybe you have a little more time to take classes.
Oh, yeah. And we treat each student individually. So, for example, we had an engineer that came into our program. Actually, we've had a number of engineers, but they already have a lot of the design and other skills. So what we try to do is figure out other classes they could take online, maybe in a different college or different program. They might want to, we have A&M has a really good construction science program. So we've encouraged them to take some other classes, and would swap out some courses here or there, but really try to tailor the curriculum to the student. If you've got some skills, if you come in with a finance background, then why should we make you take a real estate finance class?
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think you said this earlier, but when somebody comes into the program, and this is maybe more so for the undergrads, is there something that the program does as far as helping with placement? Is that largely through kind of that internship path? Maybe they get an internship with somebody who, assuming they meet all their other obligations, that they may have an opportunity to go work for that company full time upon graduation?
Yeah, I'd say probably 60% of our students will get a full-time job offer from the company with which they interned. But that's one of the other value propositions is the Aggie network. With the state of the industry and as hot as it is now, I'm getting more calls than we have students right now. But I don't want to grow the program so large that sooner or later we're going to have a little downturn, and I don't want to have 100 students all applying for the same job. So we're trying to limit the size of the program. But the Aggie network, professors helping the students, and then a lot of our former students are very active. We have a development industry advisory council, which are folks in industry that help us with curriculum, do some fundraising for our program, help students find jobs. They provide networking help, resume reviews, things like that to help our students out.
Nice. Well, let's shift into the last segment on the show. We do is something called the lightning round, where I just have a few questions I put together based on your experience and everything. It's not no huge restriction on the time of answering each of them. It used to be something where I would do like 60 seconds for each one, but some of these I think will have a longer answer, and that's all good. No worries, no time crunch or anything here. So first question for you on this is, do you have a personal favorite project that you've worked on in the past? And if so, are you able to, share a little bit about a development project maybe you worked on?
The most fun project was probably Del Webb, the Woodlands, north of Houston. It was a age restricted community, and one of the cool things about it was we had different product price points, but then we did a 13,000 square foot recreation center, so you don't do those every day. So that was really fun, and it allows you as a developer to kind of change different hats, because I was involved with the design of the building and the interior finish out and a lot of other aspects that you normally don't get involved with doing land development.
Gotcha. No, that's cool. All right, next one here. What advice would you give to young professionals looking to break into land development?
Apply to the MLPD.
Yeah, there you go.
And, education and mentoring, probably the two key areas. Learning the skills, and that's one of the advantages our students have, is that they're not experts in any field, but they have enough data points of information that, from talking to folks in the industry, when they hire our students are getting up the learning curve very, very quickly, because they have been exposed to so many different facets of a development.
Gotcha. All right, next one here. What are some of the biggest challenges facing the land development industry today?
Regulations. It's every year it gets increasingly more difficult, whether it's drainage regulations, entitlement. It just, every governmental agency wants to have a little more say as to into what your project looks like and the requirements they're imposing on you.
Gotcha. Is that, and actually kind of piggybacking on that, is that something that in the program that is a part of, I guess, their curriculum, or is taught, as far as like navigating some of that and understanding that you have things coming at you from the federal, the state, the municipal level, kind of all these different levels that you have to be looking at. And it's just, like you said, I think at the outset, things are constantly changing. Is that something you cover quite a bit?
Oh yeah, we touch on that quite a bit. The development process. So just kind of walking through our curriculum, we've got a site analysis class, market analysis class, project management, real estate law, real estate finance, entrepreneurship, a residential development class, a commercial development class. So the students are getting a lot of different pieces, and they also learn how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together as well.
All right. All right, one more here, because the last one I had on this list, we already talked about earlier, so we don't have to repeat. But this one, I'll be interested. So having been in both the, out there doing development and everything, then also on the academic side and everything, I'm curious what the best piece of advice you've received in your career has been up to this point.
Don't fall in love with a deal.
All right.
There are times, you might think this is going to be a home run, and you might find something that you'd overlook if you fell in love with that deal and think, we just have to do this deal. We just can't pass on this deal. But those are sometimes the ones that will bite you in the end.
Yep. I love it. Well, with that said, what's the best way for people listening in to connect with you or to learn more about the program?
If you go online, you can do a search for TAMU and MLPD, Master of Land and Property Development, or search for land development, Texas A&M University. But look online. We have a web page with my contact information. We also have a graduate advisor that's been at the university for just shy of 20 years, so she knows how to work all the back channels to make sure that that we keep the wheels on the bus.
Well, cool. I really appreciate the conversation, Tim. This was interesting. I didn't know a lot of this. I wasn't super familiar with the program, other than the people that I've had on the show who have talked about it a little bit. So really cool what you're doing down there. And for everybody listening in, go check that out if it's something that you're interested in. And the link that was just mentioned there, I'll make sure it's in the show notes page for this. So if you go down in the description for this episode, you'll see a link there that will go to the show notes page. And then on the show notes page, you will see a link to the website that Tim was talking about. So with that said, that is all for this episode, and we will talk to you all next week.